when we were doing the tour of the Citadel, I was like, we are the most warring species ever. And we don't even think about it. Like people are in Halifax, like, oh, it's so nice now with like, the beachfront, like whatever. But it's like, no, this is like literally born off of bloodshed, bro. They built the Citadel in a way, like the angles of the wall that they were telling us were like, so you can basically, if you try and storm the castle, the Citadel, and you fall into this pit, it's basically a pit of death. And they just shoot into that thing with like cannonballs and
Hmm.
like guns and stuff. And you're just like, they perfected a way to kill people who try and come into your city that it's like, this is what we really focused on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
out of all the ingenuity, because we talk about, the military industrial complex, and people are like, oh yeah, the military's bad, but it's like, we got the internet off the military. We got microwaves
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the military.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, if aliens really did like look at us and we were able to go out into space, like, bro, we would definitely kill people, you know? Or no, you don't think so?
I mean, it's these things are all built for at the time what was going on too, right? There weren't
True.
like there
Yeah,
weren't
okay.
like good relations necessarily with the French or whoever else. So you're looking
The,
at
the Americans who are trying to come and like take your stuff too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but I'm just talking about with the British versus the French itself, right?
Mm.
Whatever new land you're getting, you're already trying to protect it before it's stolen.
Okay, here's my question about this then, because you brought up like the French and like, okay, so I'm reading like these indigenous books as well, because like I went to the Petroglyph Park and I just slept on the books. I didn't have time to read them, but I just started reading them now. And it's like, with the way that the Citadel was set up, and you're like, oh, we're a warring species. Is that like a strictly colonizer viewpoint or no? Like a
No,
Western colonizer. Okay, explain. Who else has done that? Well, I guess Genghis Khan, the Persians,
yeah, I mean, like even
Greeks.
the
Yeah, actually.
The Great Wall, like there's reasons why these borders are built to protect, right?
Okay, totally. So now taking that into consideration, again, I ask: Are we just a warring species? Like we are so
It's
obsessed
not.
with.
I don't think it's a warring species. I think it's just we're tribal species.
Okay. So with the indigenous, like in these books that I'm reading, they're like it was untouched for thousands of years until colonization happened,
Hmm.
right? When they like came in and tried to like take things over, and with that, it's like what was happening for thousands of years that you lived in peace with this untouched land, and then all of a sudden, like we have cities now. You know what I mean? Is it like where I'm really going with this is, are demons real, bro? But not like our
Sure, sure,
demon
sure.
devil, but like psychological demons, bro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like when you say demon, it's like they're like, oh, demons in this like fifth dimension. We're in this like third dimension.
Hmm.
Because like what I'm listening to about aliens tripping me out now, and I'm just like, is there a war going on between good and evil? Even though we're like, there, like you and I are like, there's no such thing as good and evil, right? It's just like a morality concept. It's like a story, like whichever way we want to do it. But I can give you an example, and you're like, that's evil,
Hmm.
right? Like, okay, pedophilia.
Hmm.
There's no rationale for that one. I'm just like, oh,
Sure.
like like thou shalt not kill. All right, well, we go to war, you know. But then when you bring that other one up, you're like, there's no way to justify that one. Like there's no argument in your mind where that could be somewhat good,
Hmm.
right? So now we have like, let's define that as evil. Okay,
Hmm.
like from a reductionist viewpoint, do you agree that that would be considered evil? Even though we're both like, yeah, there's no such thing as good and evil, but then it's like, well, technically this, because you can't argue your way out of like that being any semblance of good,
Sure.
unless you can. I don't know. Tell me.
Uh,
Can you create an argument for the opposite? Where you're like, I mean, I get it.
it's it's our level of morality understanding because it wasn't like that before, right?
No, right? No. What, for sure. Like, because like child brides, right? Like when they get married at like 12. What about younger than that? That's where I'm going with this. It's
Hmm.
like, no. I get what you mean about like, yeah, 12. All right, sure. Like, people were younger back then. But what about like 5, 8.
Hmm.
People do that, and you're like, oh, there's no way to argue against that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's too young.
No, you can't, right? Like that's like, oh, that's too far. Like I get the 12, like, or maybe like
Sure,
because
sure.
lifespans were shorter. People, like we watched Game of Thrones,
Yeah, yeah,
but even in Game of Thrones, you're not watching like a 5-year-old.
yeah.
Like, dude, that'd be kind of weird,
Right.
right? So now we've defined evil. So now, and then we've defined good, which is like, well, let's define good, which I think is like just pursuing the right thing.
Hmm.
Okay. So Lou Elizondo has a great line about what corruption is. So he always brings this up over and over, and he asked his dad, "What's the greatest like evil against humanity?" And he's like, "Corruption." And he's like, "Oh, corruption, like like lying, cheating, stealing." He's like, "No, corruption is when you give up a core value of yours in
Mm.
order to do something." Right. And I'm like, oh, I actually agree with that. Like, you've given up a value that you think is important in favor of this other thing. So you've corrupted yourself.
Hmm.
Right. So if that is like bad, then the opposite of that would be good, which is like you uphold your values.
Sure.
Are you still with me on
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So we have good, which is like upholding your values, and then evil, which is like we can't argue a 5-year-old in that. It's like, oh, that's just straight evil. So now we take it to like biblical stuff, God
Hmm.
and the devil. It's an analogy, sure. But is that really what's could be going on? Like, are we in this third dimension plane of like physical reality, whereas you have like fourth dimension, which is like your mind, and then you have like entities battling it? Like, could that be the case? Could we actually be in a good versus evil war?
It depends on the context. Sure. Yeah. I think
When you
it.
think of it like that, you're like, dude, this is kind of crazy now. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
Bible's real? What are we doing?
Allegorically, yeah, a lot of that is real. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, demons exist, but they're not
Sure.
like
Yeah, yeah,
pitchfork.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like psychological demons,
Yeah, yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And then when I hear the Citadel thing, I'm like, what the frig are we doing?
Hmm.
Like, you're just like you're figuring out the best way to kill people. You're like,
Hmm.
what? Or like even you look at the torture stuff like back then,
No, but
and
there
you're
were
like,
even,
this
but,
is
yeah, but
crazy.
when you say that, like best way to kill people, we were still doing that in the with the atomic bomb. That's what that is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, uh, is this an interplay? Is this literally the proving grounds of good versus evil? Like, is the Bible real, bro?
Yeah, at
Allegorically,
our
not
yeah, yeah, yeah,
literally.
yeah, 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 yeah. At
Allegorically,
our worst nature. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what it's
right?
talking about. Yeah, yeah,
Wild.
yeah.
And
Because
then
the book is actually based on it's like what do you call those archaeological people? It's like it's not about like elements of it is true. It's truth statements kind of thing. That
axioms. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
that's what
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really speaking about.
Right. Like universal truths, like perennial wisdom, like stuff that you just can't deny.
Hmm.
So so like with that, like what are we, bro? If if these interdimensional time travelers or like these like internet dimensional beings are like there, we could see them. You're just like, are we a physical manifest? Is that why they're not interfering? Are we playing this game where they're just like, all right, let's just see who wins, good or evil? Like, could we be in a simulation of like, which is stronger, good or evil? Boom. Let's see.
Sure.
Because we do it every day. Like, think about like work, think about like
Hmm.
life, your job. You're always encountering good versus evil. But which is going to win out? Are we going to build like a planet of like kumbaya? Or are we going to build a planet versus like a one world government and they're just like the elite are ruling the lower class? You know what I'm saying? Like, it
Hmm.
really feels like that's what's going on right now
Yeah.
as well.
Sure. Yeah. If you that feels like that, but I don't know if that's if we understand how everything really works, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you said that. Understanding things work. Case in point. Now we'll get into what I just watched. Tubi is amazing, free. You just watch a bunch of stuff on there. The TMZ documents are on there. Documentaries on there. You see the UFO revolution, but they had one on Diddy and they had one on Epstein, and we were watching both of them. And I'm like, ooh, there's like an actual cabal of people that are like doing evil things.
Hmm.
like 5-year-old evil things,
Mhm.
things that are like, because if you look in the whole Diddy thing, they're like, a lot of them are like, we did this because they offered me $100 million to do this. So
Mhm.
now we're talking about corruption. Like, will you stay with your morality in the face of $100 million? Good versus evil.
Mhm.
And you're like, no, I'd rather have the money. All right, cool. Pull your pants down, bro. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally what was happening. And you have all these celebrities like crumbling